Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to start with the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge the contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? There being none, I will now turn the meeting over to our Director of Planning and Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of Council. Given that this is the first meeting of this type, I just wanted to discuss a few housekeeping items as it relates to the intent and purpose of this meeting overall relative to the Planning Act application process. So in the past, we had a Planning Advisory Committee followed by the statutory public meeting as part of the regularly scheduled council meeting, followed by the report to council. And what we're recommending now doing instead is having this public planning meeting, which will satisfy the statutory requirements of the Planning Act. So this meeting serves the purpose of the statutory requirement in the Act. And we've taken it out of the regularly scheduled council meeting. And this meeting will be the opportunity for members of the public to voice their concerns or express any questions that they have related to the planning application coming forward. It's also an opportunity for council members to ask questions of the applicant and of administration on the application at hand. And provided there are no material changes to the application or there's no contentious feedback that we receive, the bylaw amendment will proceed to the next meeting of council, a subsequent appropriate meeting of council following this public planning meeting. But if there is comments and feedback that we hear from the public, council, or to the different agencies, we will take that input back and it forms part of our decision making as it relates to the planning process. If that is the avenue that transpires, then we will take a report back to council and discuss the feedback we heard and how those matters were addressed and why it is that we're recommending that the application move forward. So I hope that provides council with an understanding of how this process is intended to follow and just the intent of this meeting going forward. Are there any questions of council about the intent of the meeting? Okay, great.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item D1, which was a report PD 07-2023 dated April 5th. And if I could have Mr. Alan Burgess, if you have something to add, and then present our applicant.
Actually, at this time, Your Honor, Mayor Malash, I would ask that Mr. Miller could go ahead and make his presentation, and I will add any comments as necessary.
I don't know if you want to introduce yourself or start with anything else while we wait. It's up to you. If just turn your microphone on, please. Thank you.
Mayor Malash, members of council, my name is Kevin Miller, 1856 Kirkland Avenue. I'm here representing the applicant. Also with me this evening is Dr. Tabib, who is the owner of the property. So I see we have the application. So the application that's before council this evening under the Planning Act is to rezone the property. Although I know Ms. Goodwin sort of explained there's also a plan of subdivision that's behind this, but that's actually not what's before council this evening. It's the application for rezoning. So just highlight for council, oh, we're kind of small here. This is outlined in blue are the lands that are owned by Dr. Tabib. The lands are actually in red are the actual lands that are subject to the rezoning. They comprise an area of approximately 5.7 hectares in total. That's the area that's being rezoned. The area that is totally outlined in blue is approximately 57 acres and will be developed by the owner at some point in time in the future. The lands are currently located, are currently located just south of LaSalle Woods Boulevard. They're located to the west of Disputed Avenue and just sort of northeast of the Hydro Corridor, which kind of comes down through this area. The lands are currently designated residential district under the town's official plan. The lands and the rezoning to an R2 category are consistent with the policies that are contained within the official plan. I won't go into detail. The staff report outlines in some detail all of the policies that apply to this property that are in the official plan. Safe to say that the proposed development and the rezoning is consistent with the OP. The lands that are subject to the rezoning are currently zoned deferred urban, DU, and the zoning bylaw basically sets out that anything that's in the DU zone should be what existed on the date of the adoption of the bylaw. It does allow for some other uses, but intentionally it means that the lands will stay in the state until such time as appropriate plans are prepared that would allow for the rezoning of the property. At this point, we have met with staff, we have met with the county, we've submitted an application for a plan of subdivision. Those plans have been vetted by IRCA, by town staff. There's been a stormwater management plan prepared, so all the servicing requirements are met, and it would be appropriate now to move these lands from the deferred urban zone. And what's being proposed is that they move into an R2 zone. And you will note that the lands to the north and the LaSalle Woods area and the lands along Disputed are already zoned R2. And what is being proposed is to rezone the area that's outlined on red there from the deferred urban to that similar zone R2. The R2 zone provides for a range of permitted uses, singles, semis, towns, and that would be what would be appropriate for this development. The owner's looking at providing for the development of single detached dwellings and single attached dwellings. This is actually a copy of the plan of subdivision. So this is the area that's actually subject to the rezoning. The area just to the west of it is a temporary impoundment area that would be proposed for the development. Administration has recommended in their staff report that that block remain in the deferred urban zone. At some point in future, this is only a temporary storage area. That land would be removed from its temporary impoundment facility, and it would proceed as residential development as part of a future application. So the draft plan provides for a total of 64 units, has 46 singles, 18 semis that are being proposed. I know there was one comment that was brought in that we saw that was circulated. It is the intent that the development provide cash in lieu at this point. The owner is aware of the town's desire to have a neighborhood park in the area. I believe council will be entertaining a report later this evening's agenda that looks for the development of a secondary plan in this area, and it would be through that process that a formal neighborhood park would be established for this area of the town. I think with that, just in conclusion, the application that is before council to rezone the property is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It does conform with the town's official plan, and it does meet with the intent of the bylaw, moving these lands from the deferred urban zone to the R2 zone. And with that, we would request council consider the application favorably, and we're available for any questions if council has.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burgess, anything to add?
Through your worship, we did receive correspondence from the Conservation Authority. They are indicating that they are in support of the rezoning that's before, or that is the matter of this meeting. We've also received correspondence from 2 other residents. In both cases, I had an opportunity to speak to them and provide them with some additional information with regards to the nature of the issue that they had with regards to parks and some other issues. As Mr. Miller's indicated, through our secondary plan process, which we hope to begin, as well as through the Parks and Rec Master Plan, we expect that this area will have a neighborhood park, and that will form part of the second phase of this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to allow for, I guess, is it public first? Yeah. We'll do public comments first, and we do have someone joining us through Zoom. Is Mr. Patel there?
Yeah, I'm here, and I think what I discussed earlier, I think that has been taken in consideration for the future development, and that was the only my concern, to have neighborhood park where kids and the seniors can go and do some outdoor activities, because currently this area there is nothing walking distance, any park or somewhere the kids or the seniors or even youth can go and at least have some outdoor activities. And I think outdoor activities is very important in current time, because of the work, school, and other stresses to relieve. And if there is nothing in close by in walking distance, it may be not a good idea for the future of our community. And what I see, the all other areas within the LaSalle, I see like very close park in any residential area. If it go close to the Seven Lakes or some other community behind the that crossing outlet mall, there are multiple parks and the place where kids can easily walk and do some outdoor activity, but there is nothing in this area, and we are keep adding the resident. I think it's not a healthy development I see for the future generation, and that was the only reason I just got in touch with the councilor and inform them to put that in consideration before keep adding more residents.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patel. We understand your concern with the park. Ms. Goodrin, is there anything you want to add in regards to that?
Thank you, Mayor Milosh. I guess I would say to that comment, we are recommending that the applicant contribute cash in lieu of parkland for this application. Administration never really envisioned a park as part of this 64-unit development. We are hopeful that through the secondary plan process, we'll be exploring those parkland opportunities, and appropriate locations for parkland get folded into that overall secondary plan process. So it would be our recommendation that we continue to ask the developer to provide cash in lieu.
Thank you. Mr. Patel, do you understand what she was trying to comment on? Is that okay?
Yeah, so I think part of this approval, I think, is there any way we can have a commitment from the developers to have a park to be designated some space around this area? So there is no future discussion on that we'll have that kind of park around this area, right?
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we understand your concern, and as Ms. Beggs stated, this specific development will be doing the cash in lieu of a park, so that those funds will go towards the development of a park in the future once we look more at the entire development in that region. So we're not saying no, there's not going to be a park, we're just saying it's not part of this current application. Okay, anyone else would you like to speak? If you can come forward to the microphone and just your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Rohit Patel. Oh, you're talking. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Patel.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me? Hi. So my name is Shiyu Wang. So I'm the resident in Undisputed 6265. It's close to. I think my wife talked to several times. Right now, because the new plans, we have a huge concern is about the development. Because right now, during last year, there's nothing grow there. All the neighbors in the spring, they have a lot of wind of the sand, so like a sandstorm. So because there's nothing there, so we can see. And also if the plans happens, I can see the coming 5 years, they'll be even worse. Because right now there's still some weed there, but if you're starting constructions, when the wind blow all the sand, all the neighbors, I can see every days in the spring and fall, there's think of an inch of dirt from the back. So I want to see how to solve these problems if starting construction. I only can see it's getting worse. And also there's another subdivision under development, undisputed. I can see the house, the market here is not very hot. So they're just idling, waiting for the buyers. I can foresee this land, if it's starting, they can now sold everything at the same time and starting building. So should be at least a couple of years waiting for the buyers. So the land will be empty. So the sand is still there. When the wind coming, it's blow everything back. So I want to see how can we solve these sand problems.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Beggs, I don't know, I'm sure you can address part of the comments.
Thank you.
You're going
Mayor.
to go? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Malash. Yeah, certainly during the servicing and construction work, there's really no other way to do it than start moving dirt around, and it will make a mess. Hopefully, it's only for a short period of time during that major work. Beyond, once the servicing is done and the roads are in place and some house construction begins, we could certainly work into, and I believe we have language standard in our agreements that deal with lands that don't have building permits pulled right away, where we can deal with weeds and, cutting and things like that. But I mean, there will be a period of time where, yes, there will be dirt. And for that period of time, the contractor, we have them do what they can, do the best they can, but it's hopefully short-lived.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think even to address the second half of it, maybe Mr. Militia could speak about the requirements of our municipality with Bill 23 and development.
Certainly from the perspective that we do have a number of requirements under Bill 23 to move things forward. I think the province has made it clear that they would like municipalities to fast track as fast as we possibly can. Again, we are looking at, in this particular situation, allowing for some development, and again, this is for 64 units. As part of that, we are also trying to develop a secondary plan to answer some of the existing questions with respect to our ratepayers, with respect to parkland and commercial amenities and institutional uses that would come out of the secondary plan. So it's a bit of a balance to try to get things moving as quickly as we can, but also understanding the requirements that we have under the Municipal Act, under the Planning Act, and under Bill 23, but also the obligations we have with our existing residents to provide a community-type feel that we have in that particular area. So I know that certainly the developer owns this property as well as some others in the area, and they are aware that we are recommending as part of the later meeting a secondary plan to handle some of those issues, as well as then allowing this development to go forward in the interim, because we believe that by and large, this small piece of this development can proceed forward without the secondary plan that would apply to it. So that's where we are at this point. We do have, again, the overarching aspects of Bill 23 are that we are trying to work with developers as quickly as we can to get more housing online. With that, I would sympathize that during construction, it will get messy. There is no doubt about it. and again, generally speaking, developers are generally pretty good at trying to contain that, because the more mess that we complain about, the more active work that they have to do to try to clean and maintain that. So generally speaking, the largest level of mess is at the initial stages. when the infrastructure is going in. And then after that, it becomes more residential based at that point.
Thank you very much. Would it be possible to get the spelling of your last name? W-A-N-G? Thank you. Okay, and before we move on to council questions, I just want to acknowledge we did receive the 3 written submissions, 2 emails, and a letter from the Essex Region Conservation Authority that have been included as part of this report. Members of council, Councillor Carrick, I believe you have something?
Sure, fast. So again, it is relatively a small development, so I have no problem with the 64 units going in. I guess the question, and maybe perhaps for later on when we deal with the Howard Buford District Planning thing, maybe we can get an answer to the size of the scope and how much parkland actually needs to be in a certain section, so that we're not dealing with this every time we deal with, 60, 70 lots. Would that make sense at that time to bring something forward like that?
So thank you for the question, Councillor Carrick. As part of that secondary plan process, we will take a closer look at parkland dedication and where the appropriate location is for a park. And, the development community, residents, the different agencies in the municipality will all be part of that process on locating the appropriate places for parkland from a land use planning perspective. So, and future development that comes forward will need to be in keeping with the secondary plan that gets adopted by council. So any development that comes forward in that area, provided council agrees that we continue on with the secondary plan exercise, any development that comes forward will have to be in keeping with and satisfy any of the policies and goals that are established as part of the secondary plan.
Councillor Burns?
My question would be to Alan, and maybe Mr. Miller can clarify. I don't know if I heard Mr. Miller right. He said 5.2, yet the application says 9.2.
To Councillor Burns, through you, Mayor Malash, the 9.2 would be the entire area of the plan of subdivision. So that would include the lands that are being developed plus the impoundment area. But the 5.7 are strictly the lands that are subject to the rezoning application. The balance is staying in the DU.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor?
Through you to Ms. Beggs, more of a process question. I understand the old process that we used to do. So once we get this all together, if a person who's now aware of this wanted to come and make a suggestion or anything like that, with the new process, does the public get a chance to come back again? I just wanted to make sure that it was clear and that I got it right from you, ma'am.
So this is the formal statutory public meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on the application. We've circulated in accordance with the Act. The notice went out in the newspaper. So really, this is the formal opportunity for anybody to come forward with any concerns or questions.
Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Okay, no other questions? Okay, so before we move on, I'm going to ask Mr. Burgess if he can maybe provide an explanation as to our further action this evening.
At this point, as we've indicated in our recommendation, we've noted that this report be received, and as is indicated, council would have two choices in the sense that had there been vocal opposition and or substantial changes requested to be made, then we would probably follow the first item, which would be to return this item back to staff. We would prepare a report and bring that forward to you. However, I would suggest at this time that based on the comments received and the information and the questions of council, that they may wish to consider that this item be brought forward to the next council meeting, and that bylaw would appear at that time.
Thank you very much for the explanation. Councillor Carrick moves item 2. Okay, support Councillor Desjardins. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Patel on Zoom, and everyone have a good night.
Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye.